Welcome back to Chin Music, our baseball show at TalkNorth.com. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We're presented to you by OnX Hunt and OnX Hunt's new fishing app that we'll tell you about later. Thanks to our sponsors, including Aquarius Home Services, Minnesota Masonic Charities, and Chew Vision Institute. At the end of the show, we will get into our Booze and Blues segment. It's been a lot of fun to talk about lately. And I admit, I'm kind of stuck in a rut. I might be talking about somebody we've already been talking about, but I have to get more out on him at this point. We'll also see if Roy has any music or cocktail advice for the masses here. He's Roy Smalley, former Twins All-Star, current Twins broadcaster. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune. We'll be hooking up with LaVelle Neal III, Star Tribune baseball columnist, here shortly. Let's start with this, Roy. When you see the rumors and the reports that the Twins are talking to Sasaki, the outstanding Japanese pitcher, given this team's spending habits, given that this team is up for sale, do you pay any attention to it? Do you give it any chance of happening?
I don't give it a big chance of happening. I think that I think you got to talk.
Yeah.
You got to see what he's in, and it was interesting to read a little bit about his agent saying, maybe he's a very young guy. I mean, maybe it'd be good for a small market environment here for a while. I mean, it sounded to me like they were being pretty smart, like they were planning out his career, right? Well, maybe you start out and with some place that's pretty comfortable, and then there's always the Yankees will always be there, the Dodgers will always be there at some point in time in your career. So that's kind of interesting, and I think you've got to sell this particular small market and sell what you have here and find out what he wants, and who knows? I mean, something really good might happen.
You played in very large markets and you won a World Series in a smaller market. If you could have structured your career any way you wanted in terms of where you played and when you played, what would your plan have been?
Oh boy, that's hard to say. The only thing that I would, my biggest regret is that I was. We won the seventh game of the World Series on my 35th birthday. I was contemplating retirement at that time anyway, after 13 years, and I wasn't the same. I wasn't the shortstop that I was in my prime, and I would love to have been on that club, a World Series club, particularly that Minnesota Twins club, in the prime of my shortstop career. That would have been an awful lot of fun. But other than that, I think it was, I don't think I would do anything an awful lot differently. I really, I love playing in Minnesota. Got a chance to play for the Yankees for almost 3 years, had a couple of, really good years for them, which was a great experience. And then got to come back here, make Minnesota my home, permanently, and win a World Series and retire after that. So I mean, I can't really structure it a whole lot better, I don't think.
Why were you ready to retire at 35? I mean, you took really good care of yourself. I'm sure you could have played longer if you had wanted to. Why was that enough for you?
Well, it was a question. It really was a question of family, and it was a question of. The considerations were. My wife was pretty weary of the baseball life. My kids were, my son was 7 and my twin girls were 4. And if I was going to, I was not playing for the Twins anymore. I went to spring training with the White Sox. It was at that point, it was like I was going to drag my family around. Trying to find a job that, where it made sense. And I just decided, I don't want to travel around the league proving I got calls from a lot of teams that said, man, you can still play, here. And I said, I think I'm glad to hear everybody thinks that. So that's what I want them to remember. I don't want to go around the league proving everybody that I was done. So it might have been a little premature, but not too much. It was okay.
LaVelle Neal is with us, as introduced before. LaVelle, we started this conversation about Sasaki. What is your view? Is this just kind of the Twins doing their due diligence? Do you think they really have a shot at signing him? Do you think either this ownership or prepping for an incoming ownership, they'd be willing to spend this kind of money?
I mean, it seems like they should at least have a conversation. If the agent is throwing hints out there that maybe a mid-sized market team would be better for him, then that would pique my interest. But we've all been told, and I think we're all are being prepared for the Twins to cut $8 to $10 million on the payroll projection right now. Right, it's supposed to be about 140. They want to get it down to 130. So how's that going to be achieved while adding someone like Sasaki? So I'm kind of skeptical that this is going to work out. But things can change, attitudes can change. Someone in the family can say, you know what, go ahead. Let's make this team more attractive to be sold, or in some crazy way, and move forward that way. I mean, I definitely look into it if it's not going to take top dollar to bring in someone with his talent. So, and the Twins usually are thorough. Even if they'll have a shot at someone, they'll do their due diligence and study background and at least have a conversation with the agent. So I'm doubting it. Wouldn't totally rule it out, though.
Let's switch gears now. Ron Gardenhire wins the Herb Carneal Lifetime Achievement Award. Obviously, Roy knows Ron very well. LaVelle and I covered Ron very closely, especially early in his managerial tenure. And I'll just say it up front. That was about as much fun as I've ever had in sports, is covering Ron Gardenhire in the early years with that young, crazy team where everybody would get mad at LaVelle and I that we didn't talk to them on a daily basis. It was the strangest, most backward thing I've ever experienced in sports journalism. So just, Roy, I'm sure you're happy for Ron. What are your thoughts on that?
I am happy. I mean, for Gardy, I mean, short of, I guess, Tom Kelly, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody, and maybe Stelly, Rick Stelmasic. I mean, there's a maybe 3 or 4 people, maybe 5, that really kind of stand out as bulwarks of this organization over the years, and Gardy's certainly one of those. And I mean, he was there as a third base coach. He studied under Tom Kelly. He took over the club. He did a great job. Grew into that managerial job in fun, funny, and intelligent fashion. Just a marvelous career with the Twins, and I'm really happy for him.
Gardy's gonna have a place in the front of my memory banks for some of the things he did and what he stood for, and the type of clubhouse he had, and the type of coaching staff he had. When I first got on the beat in 1998. I wasn't good, and TK was browbeating me for not knowing the finer details. I'm supposed to be able to know why in advance he's got the lefty sitting out against the lefty pitcher, and why he pinch hit for X player or whatever, or why did he use a certain reliever at a certain time. And Gardy was a big, really helpful in kind of explaining some things and kind of set me on the right path. But when he became manager, you remember this, Jim, the Twins were just getting out of the whole contraction scare. And I still remember his introductory press conference about all the questions. Were like, isn't this great to finally get this behind you, blah, blah. And after I said, screw this, Gardy. What's your batting order going to be next year? And he said, Jock is leading off. And I was like, what? And Jock Jones was the leadoff hitter. And Gardy had a great feel for players. He knew which ones he could yell at. He knew which ones needed a hug. And Jock was one of those guys who needed a hug. So by batting and leadoff, Gardy was showing him confidence that I believe in you and I think you could be productive. And sure enough, and Jim, you were there in Kansas City, the second pitch of the year. Yep. Jock hits a home run in the opposite field and kind of set him off on that 2002 run. And that was a great clubhouse. The coaching staff was great to talk to. The players were hilarious. You had the Soul Patrol, the League of Nations, the Pole Patrol with Koski and Stelly. There's just all this added atmosphere and all these funny personalities just came out of the clubhouse, and Gardy, was kind of shepherded all that. So a really smart baseball man who knew, when to be serious and knew the game very well and had league-wide respect. When I was at the winter meetings one year, I want to say it was Dallas, and Ozzie Guillen stood on top of a chair and toasted Gardy, and Gardy wasn't even in at the bar at the time. He just says, "I want to toast Ron Gardenhire because he's the only real MF in the middle of all this baseball bullshit." So everybody had a shot in honor of Gardy. So that's just the effect he had on players, and opposing managers, and on media people.
And Ron became manager at a fascinating time. He became manager when analytics were taking over the game, and he wanted nothing to do with analytics. And he also would remind us at times through his actions that sometimes your gut is right. As you said, so he becomes manager at that first press conference. You asked him about his lineup, and he told Jock's going to bat leadoff, which is completely illogical, and it worked. And I asked him who his closer was, and he said Eddie Guardado, who at that point had he had failed as a starter, become a useful middle reliever, had found a role as somebody who could come in and get a lefty out, and then had progressed to be a pretty good setup guy. So Jock Jones, the last person, an analytics person, would bat leadoff. Eddie Guardado, throwing 89-mile-an-hour fastballs that barely moved, was the last guy you would put out there as your closer. And Jock had a nice career, and Eddie became an all-star for 2 teams. Roy, you've been through it all. You tell us about Gene Mauch, who was as analytic in his own way as anybody. What was it like to watch Ron kind of just figure things out for himself?
Well, it was great. I was that's so true about Gardy. Who he is, was who he was, and didn't want anything to do with analytics. He knew the game, and he wanted to manage the game the way he knew it. I'll tell you a quick personal story with Gardy and me. You heard the story about my making the suggestion to Frank Viola in the 7th game of the '87 World Series when the Cardinals scored a couple of runs, and he came in the dugout and went back in the stairway, and he was throwing things around and yelling, and he was mad. I went back there and I won't go through the whole story. You guys have heard it, but I just suggested that they were hitting his changeup because they knew he had a great one. They were kind of sitting on it. He wasn't throwing any fastballs, and he threw fastballs the rest of the game and shut him down the rest of the way. And he switched. He made the adjustment, and the Cardinal hitters didn't. And that worked out really. Sometimes you go out on a limb and you probably shouldn't say something to somebody when it's none of your damn business. That worked out really well. It didn't work out so well for me and Gardy that spring in '87. Gardy's trying to make the club. Al Newman and he were battling for the reserve infielder spot. And I wasn't pulling for either one more than the other. I was pulling for both of them, but I just wanted Gardy to do well. I really liked him, and Gardy went up there to hit, and I think he got a chance to play one day. He went start one day, and he went up there to hit against. Remember Pete Filson, the left-handed pitcher for the Twins? He was pitching for somebody else. I forget who it was, Kansas City or somebody. We were playing him in spring training. And Gardy goes up there and gets a 1-0 count, or a 2-0 count, and obviously fastball situation. And Filson threw him a changeup, and Gardy popped it up the infield, and he came back, and he was mad. He sat down next to me, and I said, "Hey, Gardy, why'd you swing that changeup? I mean, you had a 2-0, you had a fastball count, you could afford to give up a strike. You couldn't have been looking changeup there. I mean, were you? I mean, why wouldn't you just sit on fastball and really and try to nail one?" And he looked at me like he was just pissed. He said, "Roy, God damn it, I'm trying to make this team. I don't know from changeup from fastball. I'm just trying to make the goddamn team."
That sounds like Gardy.
Yeah, and so that one didn't work out so well. I stuck my nose in something there that time that I guess I shouldn't have done.
Right. Was Gardy a prankster when he was a player? Because he sure was one as a manager.
I didn't play with it, with him. It was just just the one spring training that we were together. So I couldn't tell you. And he like I said in that story, I mean he was pretty serious about trying to make the club. I don't remember that he was that he was lighting up the clubhouse at all.
Well, I did a bunch of stories when he got the job about him and talking to people he played with, played against, knew from throughout his baseball life. I don't think he was a prankster. I think he was a jokester. He always had a story. He remembered every funny thing that ever happened to him or around him, and he loved one-liners. He became famous in New York the beat writers in New York would go to him because he didn't have to play. The beat writers would go to him because they knew he would have a one-liner about something. And
you hit that right.
Yeah,
you hit that right on the head. That's exactly Gardy. He was a jokester, but he had a great sense of comedic timing in his stories.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so it was wonderful to hear him tell stories. And you're right, he remembered everything. That he told one. I fell out of my chair laughing. He told this one story about Frank Howard when he was managing, and Frank was a mess. He got elevated to manager, and it was over his head, and he was nervous all the time. And he went out to take a pitcher out, and the pitcher started. He said to the pitcher, "How are we gonna pitch this? How are you gonna pitch this guy?" And the guy told him, what he thought. And Big Frank looked at him and goes, "That's the wrong answer. Bring me the left-hander." And Gardy tells that story so well, and he laughs at it. I mean, he just loves funny stories, and he's perfect at telling them.
No doubt.
But Gardy would have exploding crap on his desk. He would have a pen that would shock you. He would have the fake box with the mouse hiding in it that would pop out if you open up the box. He would have a calculator. If you pressed a button, you would get shocked. He had an exploding golf ball trick he pulled off on Ortiz. So he did have a pranky side. But the one-liners, you're right about that. There was 1 year in spring training, Tom Powers from the Pioneer Press asked him, is Jose Mijares in shape this year? And Gardy replied, he's in A shape. Which had me falling out of my chair. And then Jim asked him another year about who was pitching. How many pitchers was he going to use? Well, I'm going to use 9 pitchers, 1 for each inning. And Jim goes on Twitter and writes, Garden Hart says he's going to use 9 pitchers tomorrow, which means he's going to manage like he did during the regular season. And Gardy said that after we left his office, 5 players came in. Did you see what Jim tweeted about who's pitching tomorrow? So Gardy he generated a lot of laughter and a lot of jokes and a lot of one-liners.
No doubt about it. All right, let me take care of the business here. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We're presented by Onyx Hunt and Onyx's new fishing app. Want to let you know ice fishing is here, and it's time to hit the frozen water with Onyx Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on ice. Use Onyx Fish to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. Onyx Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. For a limited time, download Onyx Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onyxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice. By the way, Onyx is ONX. So check it out. If you're a hunter or a fisher person, please check it out. You'll enjoy it. Thanks also to our longtime sponsor and our studio sponsor, Aquarius Home Services.
Hey there, it's Scott from Aquarius Home Services in Connecticut, wishing you a happy and healthy holiday season. If worry-free water is on your wish list, here's a bundle of a deal. 25% off a Connecticut non-electric water softener and K5 drinking water system. Enjoy spotless dishes, sparkling fixtures, and purified drinking water from your own faucet. As your independent authorized Connecticut dealer, schedule your free water analysis today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
I want to thank a Minnesota company that does all kinds of good for all kinds of people, Minnesota Masonic Charities.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota, or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come.
And we'd like you to hear from our John Krasinski, who does the John Krasinski Show and joins me on the Viking Update Show, about his experience with True Vision Institute.
Yeah, True Vision in Bloomington. I was talking to someone at the Timberwolves game against the Hornets, and they were asking me about it. And they had also had LASIK surgery as well, and it was, the term that we both have used, and I've used it on the show, is life changing. It really is. And you're going to roll your eyes at it. Maybe if you're wearing contacts and eyeglasses, you're going to say, yeah, right. I did the same thing. I was skeptical of it. I was like, it can't be that good. But I went to Chew Vision. I visited with the nicest, most friendly staff there that put me through the paces, got me to the right answer and the right option for my vision correction, and then got me to Dr. Chew, who did an unbelievable job with the surgery itself. It does make your life so much easier, not having to go in every year, every 2 years for new glasses and new contacts, spending hundreds of dollars, getting the eye exam, trying to find what's the fashionable frames nowadays. All of those things. It's a headache. And I do not have that anymore because I got LASIK at Chew Vision. It took me not even half of a day to recover from the surgery. And by the time I woke up the next morning, I was seeing clearly and crisply, and everything was great. So go into Chew Vision or go to chewvision.com to set up your consultation and tell them the John Krasinski Show sent you.
All right, we're gonna go early to a Booze and Blues segment here, and we've ended up talking about Steely Dan and some the yacht rock stuff recently. I have to highly recommend anybody who likes either Steely Dan or that era or that genre. Skunk Baxter, kind of a genius. He's told stories about like being in a session with a band, in a studio session, and people in a black SUV wearing black suits come up, very obviously from the government, walk into the studio and say, you need to come with us. He did a lot of secret stuff for our government. He's kind of a genius. Also one of the great guitar players of all time. There's an interview on YouTube. Rick Beato. It's Beato. He's another, famous studio musician who's started his own YouTube channel. He does interviews. Pardon me?
Was he a spy?
Well, if you're a spy, you can't tell anybody you're a spy. So we can only guess as to what. I actually think he was more of a mastermind than a spy. I think he just knew how to do certain things with technologies that could be beneficial to our government. So I think he was basically on retainer with our government to do that kind of work.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, fascinating guy, incredible guitarist. I would go find YouTube, Rick Beato, Beato, his interview with Skunk Baxter about all kinds of stuff. I mean, this guy used to go dumpster diving at the Fender factory and make his own guitar. And so if you ever see Skunk Baxter playing a beat up old Telecaster, which was his favorite guitar, it was a guitar he basically built out of spare parts from dumpster diving, created his own pickups, and it's a kick-ass guitar. I think that's the one he played on My Old School, which is my favorite Steely Dan. So that's my Booze and Blues contribution for today. Do either of you have a contribution?
Blues wise,
I can't add to that. Skunk Baxter is one of my heroes, so I will go check that out.
I was reintroduced to one of my favorite bourbons recently, Stagg, Stagg. I hadn't had it in a long time, and I made a mistake when I did have it. I bought a bottle. It was one of those deals where I had to buy a $30 bottle of wine just for the right to buy the bottle of Stagg. And I took it over to a buddy's house. We pretty much killed it over 4 hours, and I regretted it. And I just was able to get some more recently. And if you come across this one, it's a full-bodied bourbon. But the thing that gets to me is that it's got kind of like the smoky finish, which I love, like smoke old fashions, which I think are wonderful. And drinking Stagg reminds me of that because it's got that smoky finish to it. And if that's something that's your jam, I wholeheartedly suggest you look up Stagg, either on a website or one of the more well-known liquor stores in town, like Liquor Boy or someplace like that would have a huge selection of bourbon. But I just had, and I was like, man, I got to find another bottle of this because I miss this bourbon. So that is my booze contribution for this week.
I'll say that also to revisit Skunk Baxter, My Old School. Another thing on YouTube you can find Steely Dan playing on the Letterman show with Skunk Baxter stage right playing that old beat up old Telecaster. Maybe my favorite version of My Old School ever, and Skunk just lights it up. Go check that out. It's like Steely Dan in their prime at the height of their powers. It's fantastic stuff. All right, so that's our Booze and Blues stuff. Next week, LaVelle and I will do kind of a year-end recap, and I want to get into a topic that we touched on today. And I think I think Minnesota baseball fans need to have more fun. And, that's one of the reasons I miss Ron Gardenhire as much as I like Rocco. Ron was a stand-up comedian. But I want to kind of get into that topic next week. So LaVelle and I will kick that around. For today, since the last time we have Roy this calendar year, Roy, any final thoughts on the Twins, state of baseball? Any thought you like you can wrap up the show with?
My only thought is how much money there is in the baseball world. If even a wonderful hitter like Juan Soto and a player like the big gun in LA, if those guys can get the money they can get, it's incredible to me how I guess baseball is really popular. I guess they're making the industry's making a boatload of dough. It's incredible to me.
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up question to that is: are those massive contracts a good sign for the state of baseball because the money's there, or is it a bad sign for the state of baseball because the money isn't there for everybody?
That's a good question, Jim.
Well, I think it's I think it's a great question, and I think that those kind of contracts wouldn't be given out if there weren't a whole lot of money floating around to everybody. Obviously, the rich get richer, but if baseball was in serious trouble, there's no way that even those big market rich teams would feel like spending that kind of money. I think. I don't know that I'm right, but that's what it feels like to me. It feels like the game's in really good shape right now.
All right, good stuff from Roy. Roy, enjoy the holidays. We'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks. Next week, check out the year-end episode with myself and LaVelle Neal III. For today, thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to everyone who listens to this show. Thanks to everyone who listens to TalkNorth.com. We keep growing the network. We have some cool plans for next year. We appreciate all the support. So everybody, happy holidays. We'll talk to you soon.